Hi everyone, my name is Chantel and welcome to today's exciting episode of Amplifying Girls' Voices podcast. And of course, today's session is obviously different because we've got guests in the house. All right, let everyone introduce themselves. We'll start there.
Yeah, my name is Sune. I'm from Denmark. I own a female-only boxing gym where I'm really trying to create like a safe space for women to practice boxing and really like feel the empowerment that martial arts can give to women.
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Chi. I'm part of Amplifying Girls' Voices through digital arts.
Oh, I thought it was you. No, okay. Well, I'm just trying to be Chi, that's why I'm wearing the shade. I'm just trying to blend in. No, my name is Iris Gold, and I'm a singer and a rapper from Denmark. And I'm really excited to be here and spread the word to the world to end violence.
Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Lindy We're from Rosenblatt. You can call me Linda. I'm part of the Amplifying Girls' Voices through digital arts.
All right, now that we're done with the intros, we're just going to get down into our topic of the day. So today we decided to settle on gender-based violence, but to take a more different approach. Chichi is just going to unpack what we're talking about today. Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about gender-based violence, right? So maybe if we're to define gender-based violence, we can talk about how it encompasses physical, emotional, and sexual violence perpetuated against an individual based either on their gender, their sex, or perceived gender identity. So this is what we're talking about. And then we can also talk about how, according to the UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, 1 in 3 women aged between 15 to 49 have faced physical violence or have been victims of physical violence, right? So this is really what we're talking about. To say if we've got a group of 10 women, 1 in 3 of those women has actually been a victim of gender-based violence.
Okay, that's really interesting information there. No, maybe just to narrow it down, maybe we could talk about how what economic violence is, relating it back to our Zimbabwean context. The other day, I was checking the people that are our age groups, right, our peers, roughly between 20 to 25. I was checking the marriage rate, right, and looking at how much so many of the young girls are unemployed. So meaning they are solely dependent on their husband for money, right? So I then noticed that there's so much economic violence that's happening, and rooting it back to our traditional norms and values. It all starts in the family structure, the family, how the society has put it. So maybe if we talk about how our societies, our families, maybe could be the root cause of economic violence. Yeah.
Well, personally, I grew up in like hippie communities. I was kind of bohemian. We didn't have much. So I think the first time I made any kind of money, like real money, I spent it on really, really stupid stuff. Like I just wanted to have like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and then it had to be like all brands and everybody had to see that I had made money. And I wish that my mom or dad had sat me down and like taught me about economics. And I wish that we would learn these things in school, really. And I feel like it's become like more of a boys thing. Do you know what I mean? Oh, the boy will like sort that thing out. I don't need to do all of that. I really wish I knew more about investment, like really, and in properties, if I hadn't bought all of that stupid stuff, I could have maybe had an apartment now in London and been a property developer. But you know what? Sometimes you live and you learn. And now this time around, I know a bit more, and I can probably educate my son a little bit more, and for future generations. So I feel like, okay, it was a mistake, but it was a fun mistake. and I've learned from it.
I like the direction of this, the way you're saying, I should have invested in property, Here back in Zimbabwe, right, things are really, really different. When we talk about economic empowerment, economic violence, we look at how some industries are basically reserved for men. Women are not allowed. But I'm really interested in the idea that you actually own an all-female boxing club. Maybe if you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I was looking into the numbers a couple of years back, and I saw that only, I think at that time it was 14% of all the boxers in Denmark were female. And I don't know about you guys, but like if I asked 10 women, I believe 9 of them would say, if I ask them, have you ever tried boxing? And they would be like, no, but I always wanted to, Everybody says that. You guys have been trying boxing?
No. Never.
Never. You have. Yes, very good. Iris is the one. No, but I'm saying that everybody just like they always wanted to try it. But if you imagine going into a boxing club and you got like 30 dudes all shirt off, beards, and like they're boxing, they're sweating, they're bleeding. Like it's not a very welcoming environment,
Yeah.
So what I do is I created like a safe environment where like ladies can come and obviously it's less intimidating if you like training with a like-minded peer, like a woman. Just if you're a woman, it's more safe to train with another woman, and really trying to get that empowerment. And I do coach a lot of self-employed women, and they come to me and they actually say, "Yo, this boxing I didn't know at first, but as I've progressed in boxing and become better and stronger, I'm not that afraid to take risks in my business. I feel more confident. I feel stronger, and I feel more." Like, you know what, this is my right too. And women in the workplace, they come and they say, yo, I've become better at setting boundaries. And when their boss is coming to try to load off stuff at their table, like, oh, finish this by Monday. They're like, no, I'm off. I'm going training,
Yes.
And that's, so, and that confidence is something that I really take pride in instilling in them through hard work. Confidence comes from achievements, not the other way around, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if you achieve, okay, I can do 10 push-ups, and I'm like, no, you can do 20. I'm like, okay. And then you do 20. It's like, yo, I can do 20 push-ups. Yeah. Now you're gonna do 30, and then you build on that, and that will build confidence, and that confidence they bring out into their day-to-day work and life and home life. And I believe that's like the main mission. It's like to empower women through boxing in my gym. And that's something that I take great pride in.
That's really interesting.
I think if only we have such initiatives, or if only we had such opportunities, the same opportunity that you guys have in Zimbabwe here, right? So I think it will be actually better, and it will be something nice, different and amazing, women doing boxing, because here in Zimbabwe, to be honest, boxing is for men.
Yeah.
It's for men, and I don't see some of our families supporting a girl child to say, no, you want to be a boxer. Yes, we're supporting. They won't. Boxing is for men. It's a bit difficult. It's a little bit aggressive and so on.
Yes.
But I feel as though that's a very good sport, because I feel as though you're also teaching them about self-defense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Actually, on a more positive note, I actually saw this post of a local school, Njube High. They actually have a boxing club. They have a female boxer.
I saw that girl.
It was so sad to see the comments,
Okay,
right?
wow.
Everyone was discouraging her. Everyone spoke about how she could actually be a perpetrator, beating around boys. So I was actually surprised to see that people are not receptive of women venturing into boxing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if in Denmark you guys have the same thing, or it's actually something that people look up to.
No, it's definitely there, and I do definitely, I'm not gonna lie, I have some haters out there for sure, because it's like, oh yeah, like women shouldn't be boxing, they should be back in the kitchen, and stuff like that. I hear that a lot, but yoga and running is not for every woman, just as boxing is not for every woman either. You gotta acknowledge that. So it's it's more like, what do you like to do? What's fun to do? It's very important. And I also think now it's boxing, but just that, because women in Denmark, and I think in general, always they're like, we think they should be there for others before themselves. But that thing about, hey, 3-4 times maybe a week, you go down and you train, and you do this not for your kids, not for your husband, not for your workplace, not for your friends, not for your mother, not for your own damn self. And I think that's very important that we take time out for that, regardless of what it is. So that's also something that I really like. You do this for you, and that's also very empowering for women.
Okay. That's really interesting, actually. I think everything that you guys are saying is really
I don't know if we answered the economic violence, but it definitely.
Yeah. So moving on to economic empowerment now, right? I'd like to know from you guys, do you really think that economic empowerment would be the best tool to curb gender-based violence?
I feel like it would be, because we're looking at the fact that maybe we first look at our traditional society to say women were in the house, in the kitchen, that's where your place is.
Yeah.
And then men went out to work, right? So the man is providing for the family.
Exactly.
The woman is just there, getting the money. She's dependent on the man. She's not making any money of her own. And I feel like most of the time, men sort of rode on that, I can treat her whichever way because, she's not contributing. I'm the breadwinner.
Exactly.
Even if you decide to wake up and leave me, where are you gonna go?
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure they were asked that question at some point, right? So now if we're saying that women are empowered, they can be able to make their own money. If I'm making my own money, I know that if I'm in an abusive relationship, I can easily walk away because I have the means to sustain myself, right?
Independent now to stand on my own.
And if you notice, usually the most abusive men do not want you to work. A lot of men will say, I don't want an empowered woman. Meaning they're troublesome in our language, right? And stuff like that. Which shows us that no, they're against it because they know that with economic independence comes power and freedom.
And freedom. That's very much true.
I also think like psychological violence is the first thing to do the economic violence. So first you need to break down the person to say, you know what, you don't need anybody else. I can provide for you. And you think, love bombing, and they put you on a pedestal and everything is this like, I don't need to do anything. I could just be the woman and this prince is going to come and save me. And we read about it in all the fairy tales and we see it in many like rom-coms, like romantic comedies. Someone needs to come and save you. So at the end of the day, I think that's the worst thing. It's like the breaking down of your mind to think that you can't do anything by yourself. And all of a sudden, they're running all the things, all the money, everything. And how do you get out from that? Because you can physically, in Denmark anyway, it's easier to find a shelter or somewhere to go. And we live in a welfare state, you know what I mean? But it's the whole thing of making someone feel like they're in a prison, but they're not.
Yeah.
And didn't they do some testing with like, I don't know, was it mice or something where they made like a fence that would like sting them like at the same time, and the I think it was mice. They were like, okay, I can deal with this pain because I know when it's coming, but it's the whole like. Then they tested it again with unpredictable pain, and that was the worst. And I think that's how people control you, and then can take over your money and be like, we should invest in this, or we should buy new, we should do this, or you should just give me all your money, or we should just.
I definitely think the way the system is set up with, like you say, like the man is the breadwinner, I think that definitely empowers, unfortunately, weak men to take control psychologically and economically of women. So I definitely believe like it's a great way out of the inequality to make sure that the women also have like economic power to build their own business or to go work. But it's very important also because it can also shift all the way over. So now even women who's like, I have a great man. He's actually providing. He's actually giving me half. He's actually doing all this. I don't want to work, but it's like we can have both, you know?
It's also certain men who do these things. They are perpetrators. They know exactly what they're doing, and they do it again and again. So it's not we're not talking about like a nice man, a good man. Like there are good men out there. We're talking about the men that systematically break down someone to have control and to eventually like, and the woman can't leave because of financial. What do you mean like a financial prison in a way? I would say.
Okay, so just to add on what she has said, right? One thing that I believe for sure is you cannot break an independent woman. You cannot break an independent woman, right? But a dependent woman, it's easy to do that because you threaten her and tell her, you know what? I'm going to leave this if you're not going to abide to A, B, C, D. She's going to do that because she's desperate for money. She has no one, their kids, and so on. And the man is what? is the provider, right? Meaning which she has nowhere to go. And one thing that I've noticed in our culture, right? I'm not sure in Denmark if it happens, right? But here in Zimbabwe, we have what we call bride price, lobola, right? A lot of men, they think that once I pay lobola for you, I now own you because I pay that bride price. So if I say ABCD goes because I'm the man here, I paid something. And if you go to your mother and say like, no, mom, this man is abusing me and so on and so on, your mom will be like, do you want us to give him his money back?
Yeah.
Where are we gonna get his money back? We've used his money. So you know what? Go there and be the wife. And then you know what they'll do? They'll tell the man, they will say to the guy, discipline your wife. You know, and the means of discipline is what? It's either hitting you or any other forms of gender-based violence. So I feel as though the issue of bride price is also a contributing factor because a lot of men feel as though the moment I pay that, it's more like an exchange. I have paid for you. I now own you.
You're part of the furniture.
Exactly, my rule go.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's very true.
I do think though in our country, I don't know if it's the same in yours, but you know, it doesn't really matter if you're independent or if you're a successful businesswoman. It really happens to any kind of woman. And certain men will find it more fun to break down someone who's powerful, or someone who seems strong. Do you know what I mean? So I think it applies to all women, but definitely if you're really financially struggling, it's going to be double as hard to
but
get
it looks
out.
fun. You know, imagine breaking a independent, powerful, and rich woman. It's more fun and more men love you, men. Like naturally. Okay, let me just say men. Naturally, certain men, they certain men, they love challenge. They love challenge. Certain men love challenge. Yeah. So imagine breaking a powerful woman. That's
It's more fun. Yeah,
it's like fun. You know, I don't know.
It's like the prize horse or whatever you call it.
Exactly.
You know, you don't want to break the horse that's already broken.
Exactly.
Imagine she's financially independent. You know, she's powerful.
Yeah.
She's popular like Iris.
Okay. So now moving on, I take it that basically what our society instills in us, because society is a way of living, right? So what we decide upon as a community is what we live up to. So, you know, maybe coming back to the young people, because I noticed that we're talking about women that are in relationships or women that are married, maybe talking about financial literacy in school children, women and girls that are not yet married, that are not yet in relationships. I don't know how we can empower them economically, that is to say.
I believe like the best way to go about it. I believe that in Denmark, where we have really good like welfare and really good security, but I still believe I have a daughter. She's 2 years old. She can do whatever when she grows up, whatever she wants, but she will have to pursue that. I will make sure whatever she wants, but pursue it. But I believe that the best way is to be self-employed, because that's like a way for women to be financially. It's kind of counterintuitive, because at the same time you never know when your next paycheck is gonna come. You have to grind for every single business that's coming your way, but you can never be fired. You know, you once you become self-employed, you learn how to sell, and if you can sell a service, you will never be without work again. You know, so I believe like teaching young girls and young women. I believe like the power of being entrepreneur, being self-employed. That's like very, very important, both in Denmark and then when I come here and I talk to like strong young people like yourselves, I can see that being self-employed is like such a big thing. Like everybody's like, yo, people have I talked to somebody, she told me people have master's degrees, but they sell vegetables. And they even hide that they have mastered, because like there's no work, there's no jobs. And that's, in my opinion, in my world, that's not safe. That's very shaky. So I'm like, go get yours, you know? And then, so that's my take on it.
Yeah, that's true. We have to use the very challenges that have defined our society an opportunity for us to turn those into opportunities. Yeah.
And have it part of the curriculum, do you know what I mean? So you're not learning about, I don't know. I've never really used my sewing skills that much. But I guess if I was a designer, then it would be different. But I really would have learned. I would have really loved to. Like, how do you build a business? How can you be self-employed? How can you,
In Danish schools, you learn all about all these X and Y and Z, and that's great. What about tax? And what about tax deductions? What about when you have to do this? What about, they want this? How do you develop this product? Yeah, but nothing. It's only like they're making very good factory workers, you know, for the
hamster wheel.
The rat race. They just want you to go to a job, grow old, and then. But I'm like, nah, there's more to life.
Yeah. And it's also, I also think it's a class thing, because it's like if you come from a more upper class in our country, then the parents obviously they're like doing well and affluent, and they can tell you, you know, you should invest in it. But if you're like someone who doesn't have anything, like who's gonna tell you? They're just gonna be like, work. Work. Like my friend, I mean, it's totally different. Like, I'm from Denmark, but the people around me, they had a lot, but I had to start working when I was 11 or younger. Do you know what I mean? So it was different for me. But so I don't really have time for all the extra stuff that I guess my friends had that lived in more like fancy areas. Do you know what I mean? Or the space to like figure out what I wanted to be. So I guess, does it make sense?
It does make sense.
And I feel like we have so many similarities, because I remember at some point I was like, okay, I did go to school, but sometimes I can't really apply all of the things, the X, find Y, whatever that Suna was talking about. Like, I cannot apply it into my life. But I feel like maybe if we had learned more also about financial literacy, entrepreneurship, I'm quite certain I would obviously be able to better navigate, you know? And obviously we can talk about how also business is not for everyone. Maybe there are people who are comfortable getting jobs. That's totally okay. But then also knowing that I've got the skill set, I can just choose to not do it. But then knowing that I've got the knowledge would also go a long way. So I feel like also it's important to invest in young girls' education, because I feel like that's somewhere where we tend to like sometimes to say if a girl drops out of school because of maybe pregnancy or whatsoever, it's always good for her to be also able to go back to school, you know, if we have the means, you know, and things like that. And it also helps us because if we have an empowered generation, because one thing about education is that it empowers you to a certain extent, right? You're able to make decisions, you know, you're able to say, okay, I do not want this, and you actually stand your ground and mean it and stuff like that.
Can I ask you something? Like here, is it like quite taboo or something that you talk freely and openly about, like violence, or is it more like, no, we don't really talk about that?
I'd say it's work in progress. Yeah, because in our society, gender-based violence is regarded as discipline. So I think we're just trying
that's really different.
We are slowly opening up to talking about gender-based violence, right? Because some of the victims, they don't see it as abuse really. Rather, they see it as a discipline, a form of discipline from the husband. So we are slowly, you know, change doesn't happen overnight. So we are working on that. We are slowly getting there. But hopefully.
And I feel like it's so hard to unlearn years, about decades.
Exactly.
Should we say centuries
of
trauma, you know? Because I feel like our mothers would say, okay, maybe they do feel like it's wrong, but then I'm quite certain when they went to their mothers, they'll say, no, but he's your husband, you know, you need to go back home and stuff like that. Oh, he slapped me. Oh, he just slapped you. It's bad. He used to kick me. He used to kick me. Oh, he used to kick me. And like that, you know?
And one that I've noticed is, have you ever noticed that growing up, some of those people, you see your mom being beaten by your dad, right? And then growing up, you feel as though, okay, so it's normal. So if my husband does the same thing, it's normal because I used to see my mom going through the same thing. So as a boy child also, you feel as though beating your wife is actually something that is okay. It's discipline, because growing up, you used to witness all forms of abuse. So really.
Okay. So just
if you wanted to know anything in Denmark, actually, it is really, really taboo still. And even though we have all the resources and there's a welfare system and we're like a civilized society, still violence is like, it's like something we don't really talk about. It's so weird. It's like the elephant in the room. But I mean, if I have to give a little shout out to Plan International, you know, the song that I did, Boys, 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 is about gender-based violence. Shout out to Praise. But I feel like through music, it's easier sometimes to get a message across.
Yeah, that's
and if
true.
you like package it in nice like pop music, it's easily digested. So they played the song a lot on radio, but I don't even think a lot of people know what the song is really about until I say so, or like the host would say so. But I think it's a smart way, you know, music and culture and that kind of thing to get the message across.
Okay, so just to conclude, we'd really like to commend people like you guys that are active participants and active advocates against gender-based violence and so much for economic empowerment. We also like to recognize big organizations like Musasa here in Zimbabwe and Plan International and programs like Scholastica, which are run by Old Mutual, which empowers students on financial literacy. So guys, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our channel. Bye.
Bye.